I know you wanna leave me, but I refuse to let you go. If I have to beg and plead for your sympathy, I don't mind, 'cause it means that much to me. Ain't too proud to beg, sweet darling, don't you leave me, girl, don't go. Ain't too proud to plead, baby, baby, don't you leave me, girl, don't you go. On Facing the Music, the spotlight's on Motown, so stick around, don't go. Oh, don't go. Best is yet to come, sweet darling, don't you go now, stick around. Hey, welcome to Facing the Music, where the conversation about music never ends. I'm Danny Faragher. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. We've got DJ Rebel Soul coming to us from up north, and we're going to be discussing Motown Records. Let's do a little musical time travel. On this date in 1888, the first classical music was recorded onto wax cylinder. Handel's Israel and Egypt. Let's flash forward to this date in 1955. Billboard magazine announced that 45 records had outsold 78 records. In 1957, Buddy Holly and the Crickets recorded this tune. Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. Yes, that'll be the day when you make me cry. You said you're gonna leave me, you know it's a lie, 'cause that'll be the day when I die. Love that record. In 1995, on this date, Frank Sinatra gave his last live performance. Miss Frank. Okay, in 2010, Apple announced that they had passed the 10 billionth download. You know what the 10 billionth one was? It was Johnny Cash doing I don't like it, but I guess things happen that way. Ba-dum-ba-dum, ba-dum-ba-dum, ba-dum-ba-dum. Okay, we have some artists who had birthdays. Armand Louis Couperin, composer from the 18th century, 1727. Enrico Caruso, born in Naples in 1875. Farron Young, the hillbilly heartthrob, born in 1932. And George Harrison, Beatle, 1943. Okay, we've got Rebel Soul, DJ Rebel Soul on the line. Rebel Soul, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great, great. What's the weather like up there on the other side of the mountains?
It's snowy, it's cold, and it's hell.
It sounds interesting. Rained a little bit down here, but we're dry now. Hey, I wanted to talk about Motown. I wanted to tell you that I went and saw Motown the musical. Knocked my socks off, man. It was wonderful. So positive, gloriously exuberant.
I can't tell you how much I love Motown. So
yeah, I wish you could have been there, because the vibe in the room was just so great. It was. I told myself when I was walking out, this was just what I needed. You know, in this day and age when there's so much narrow-mindedness, there's so much fear and anxiety and division. It reminded me of how music could bring people together.
Yeah.
Motown certainly did that in the 60s. It brought a lot of people together. It integrated popular music. And I was thinking, Motown was, what an incredible story that is, and how successful it was, and what just, how interesting, you know.
Yeah.
To me, it's the quintessential American success story.
Yeah.
Very
Gordy.
Very Gordy. You got it right on the money. My impression, my memories of that was that it was the soundtrack of my teen years. In fact, the slogan for Motown was The Sound of Young America. I think I got that right. The Sound of Young America. That was always written as a byline on one of the on the albums there. And I have a great emotional connection with the songs from Motown. And I was wondering, you having been grown up in a later generation, what does Motown mean to you?
Well, you mean it's in every movie that I've ever seen that I like. Like the Scorsese films,
the Scorsese,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll be the postman, and stuff like that. Or the assassination scene with the what's his name? The little guy, whatever. But it doesn't matter. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I love every sound of it in those movies, but I also love it because it's everywhere around me anyway. Yeah. It's on commercials now. It's the Big Little Lies. It has the Temptations. What is it? Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah, the Temptations in their Norman Whitfield stage. Yeah.
So it's all around us. It's so prolific that you can't escape it.
You can't get away from it because it was so good, man.
Yeah, because it was so good.
Yeah,
because it was so good.
It was quite different from what had come before. It moved away from the doo-wop sound of the 50s, which I loved, and also from the straight blues, which I loved. It was a combination of a pop sensibility with the gospel and with a really funky soundtrack with great musicians, and the songwriting was superb. But I was wondering, where did this come from? I mean, Motown just didn't appear out of air. Somebody had to have some vision, and that person was Berry Gordy.
Berry Gordy.
Yes. Thank God for Berry Gordy. He started off as a songwriter, and had a lot of success as a songwriter with Jackie Wilson. Do you know who Jackie Wilson was?
Yeah.
He was a big star in the late 50s and the early 60s. A wonderful performer. I wish there were more film. Back in those days, they didn't have cameras that could film everybody, and I wish I had some of the film of him at the Apollo. But anyway, Berry Gordy wrote Lonely Teardrops, which was a million seller for him. And he also wrote, well, she's so fine, fine, fine. She's so fine, fine. She's so fine, she's fine, fine. She's so really sweet, the finest girl you'll ever want to meet. Reet petite. And he had written about 4 or 5 hits for Jackie, but realized that he wasn't getting the bread that he wanted from that. So
imagine that.
I got to have some of that publishing and maybe start a record company, and he did.
There you go.
He borrowed $800 from his family, and he was off. And the first. One of the first artists he worked with was Smokey Robinson. Smokey had a group called the Matadors, and they changed their name to the Miracles. Yes, but Smokey did have the first hit. The first hit was by a guy named Barrett Strong, and it was Money. Do you know what song I'm talking about? Yeah. Money. That's all I want. That's all I need.
Oh,
Money.
You go ahead. You go right on it.
Well,
Money. I know.
Yeah, I was 12 years old. But I was already a real rock and roll freak, so my brothers and I, we would always... it
was kind of like a backdoor way in.
Yeah, we'd
the R&B.
We'd pull our allowance and buy a 45. The radio started playing this song by Barrett Strong called Money, and I loved it. And I was at Sunday school, and the teacher, who was a very liberated woman of about 60, just very open-minded, she said, "Danny, you've got a perfect attendance for the last 6 months, and I want to buy you a gift. What would you like?" And I said, "I'd really like that 45 record by Barrett Strong called Money." And she walked 5 blocks to the music store and bought Money. And I took it home, put it on.
Oh man!
The best things in life are free. but you can give them to the birds and bees. I need money. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want.
That's what I want.
That's what I want. Yes, sir. That was the first hit. That was on Tamla. That was the first hit. Tamla Records. You know, Berry Gordy wanted to name the record company Tammy Records because he was a big fan of the Tammy movie with Debbie Reynolds, and I think he was thinking of. He didn't want to just have a label that was going to sell on the R&B charts. He wanted to have a label that was going to sell, was going to hit the pop mainstream. That pop mainstream radio was going to play his music, and he did. Now the next big record was "Shop Around" by Smokey Robinson, and that was a million seller.
Yeah. Shop Around. Yeah.
You better shop around. Yeah, great record.
Yeah.
I dug that too. And then he had some hits with the Marvelettes. Like you said, Please Mr. Postman, Beechwood 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, which incidentally Marvin Gaye wrote that song. Marvin did a lot of producing too. And
now, how did the Wall of Sound play into all this? Because
that was more like a parallel thing. Because when you listen to those records, they're a little bit different than the Motown records. Although it sounds like
they have that big, glowing, everywhere, sonically, it pushes in on you. Yeah, so it's very similar.
The Ronette records, I think they were more washy sounding. There was more echo, and big wall of sound. Where I think the Motown records, even a record like Please Mr. Postman, it's tighter. It's a funky, tighter feel. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's definitely tighter.
Yeah. But
we were listening to Buddy Holly the other day, and it was and I couldn't believe how clean it sounded.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a different feel because, if Buddy Holly is so clean that it actually sounds like it could be played today.
Yeah.
But if you play it like anything from the 60s, it sounds very compact and tight, and because of that Wall of Sound thing, even the Beatles, everything is really just jammed into a box, and it's a very different sound, but it's great. I mean, it's really hard to achieve that because
Motown had their technical side too. They had a chief engineer named Mike McLean, and he invented things. In fact, they built their own 8-track because when they started recording in 59 and 60, it was just a 2-track. So they were always pushing the edge technically too, and had an 8-track. I think pretty early. They had one of the earlier 8-track machines. The artists, the Marvelettes, Martha and the Vandellas. I have an album here. Look at. Here's another thing. This is Martha and the Vandellas' greatest hits.
Really?
And it doesn't have a picture of them. What they did is, because they wanted radio to play the records, they had to play the game of not putting African American faces on the front of the record until a few years later, and those few years later, that shows you how much things had changed in a couple of years. And then the Supremes came out, and the Supremes were like the epitome of elegance,
Diana Ross.
Berry Gordy had all these different. He had different divisions within the record company itself. He had the engineers. He had the studio musicians, the studio. He had a publishing company, and this was all contained in the Hitsville, USA
facility.
The facility, yeah. Which when you look at it, it looks like residential houses. Like two-story houses from Detroit.
It's like a little poor thing. Yeah. Before they moved to LA, it was like nothing.
Yeah. Well, he ended up buying like 7 houses in a row, and to house everything. They at one time they had like 445 people working there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
I didn't know that.
You know, he had the publishing company. He had Harvey Fuqua was running his the artist development, and they managed the artists too. And so, you know, everything was impeccable. Everything was, you know, they had a woman who taught social grace and poise. They had a choreographer. They had a vocal coach. They probably had a tailor too. And so when you think of Motown, the Motown reviews,
they were elegant.
You think elegant.
Everything they did was great. I mean, the choreography is incredible.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, every band had that choreography.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, they had the social grace teacher.
They had, everybody, Marvin Gaye resisted because he'd already,
but he could do that.
Pretty well
he could do that.
Schooled already in performing. Yeah. And then there was Junior Walker and the All-Stars, too, the sax player. I said, shotgun, shoot it for me, run now. Yeah, that's kind of a raunchier sound, you know. He didn't have to go to the social grace school either. But, so I hope I'm not missing anybody. Let's see, the Marvelettes, the Supremes,
Stevie
Contours. Wonder. Do you love me? Do you love me? Stevie Wonder. He was always called Little Stevie Wonder then. Now, Little Stevie Wonder played a harmonica, chromatic harmonica. I play a chromatic harmonica. I'm pretty good, but I always say this about Stevie: if he had done nothing but played harmonica, we would know who he was, because he was that great a harmonica player, let alone a songwriter and a singer. You know, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours.
Still, it's that one song that everybody loves.
And yeah. Well, we all know that Stevie went on to create some great albums, and so did Marvin Gaye.
Now they left Motown when they did that. Period. They left Motown.
No, What's Going On was on Motown. What's Going On, which I think is
so
the
too.
greatest
Honestly,
album ever.
That's
recorded.
Probably my favorite album.
Yeah, and then it's my favorite too, and it sure has legs, doesn't it? You know, it sounds really great right now. Stevie had like 4 or 5 or 6 original albums where he was being experimental too. But back to the mid '60s, Motown had a policy of they had set songwriters. The songwriters were Smokey Robinson, who wrote for the Miracles, his group. He wrote for the Temptations. He wrote My Girl. He wrote for Mary Wells, who was their first really huge star. And she left after about 2 years to get a deal with Columbia. Never really had the success again.
That's pretty common.
But
if you have a good thing, stay with it.
It is common. But Smokey was writing for the Temptations too. He wrote My Girl, and he wrote the song I'm Ready for Fee, fi, fo, fo, fum, look out, baby, now here I come. You know that song, which I think is great, but evidently it didn't get in the top 10, and so the writer producer Norman Whitfield had already recorded a song with the Temptations called
"Ain't Too Proud
to Beg," and so because Smokey didn't have a top 10 hit with that, Norman Whitfield became the writer producer for the Temptations, and the Temps went in a kind of a different Beauty's Only Skin Deep, and then into the psychedelic soul music. You know.
Yeah, I love that atmospheric thing. Yeah. Papa was a Rolling Stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home.
No matter he had his hat was his home.
When he this was alone.
No, this was a lie.
His mama
was alone.
Yeah, the Echoplex.
With a trumpet on the Echoplex.
Yeah.
See how this is so wired into our brains.
Rolling Stone. Yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah. So the Temptations. That's a lot different than My Girl, but they were so good. Another group was the Four Tops. The Four Tops had been kind of like a jazz group, you know, a smooth jazz group, and the lead singer Levi Stubbs was kind of a ballad singer, but he ended up on Motown. He was a baritone singer. He was singing at the very top of his lungs. I remember Vinnie Poncia, who was the Faragher brothers producer on most of our recordings, had worked at Motown. I think he produced some things, and he was always joking about how Levi Stubbs would say, "They got me singing way up there all the time." You know, he was, you know, he did that song. Do 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 do. Now when your feet can't go on, and your hand is down your line. You know that song? Reach Out, I'll Be There. Yeah, that's my very favorite. And that was written by Holland Dozier Holland. Holland Dozier Holland. Their songs are completely different from both Norman Whitfield, who incidentally David Barrett Strong. Who
where were they from?
What's
their background?
He also wrote with Norman Whitfield.
That song, Holland.
Who?
Dozier. What? Yeah.
Holland Dozier Holland. They wrote all the Supremes hits. Almost all of them. You know, like I think 12 out of 14 or something like that. And they had a really interesting way of writing. They would write a section, and then it would kind of like turn a corner, and it would be a different section. Whereas, like Smokey Robinson as a songwriter, I always imagine him kind of taking me by the hand and leading me through the song. You know, everything is really smooth. Whereas Holland Dozier Holland had kind of abrupt changes, but it worked. It worked great. And then Norman Whitfield, completely different. That was more funky, you know, a bluesier side. So that takes us into the musicians.
So
Funk Brothers.
So Hits Down USA. I mean, how did, like, say the Jackson 5? Like, how did they get in? How does this happen? Yeah, I mean. How do you get into Hits?
How did they? Okay. Well, the Jackson 5 I think they were discovered by one of the members of the Miracles, and who brought them into. Yeah, Smokey Robinson. I can't remember the Miracle who did it, but
it was his crew.
But
and then how did that happen? I mean, what is the process? What does it take? You know, in those days, what did it take?
Well, yeah. They auditioned. I mean, there's a famous tape of him of the Jackson 5 auditioning where he's doing the James Brown song, baby, 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 baby. And he's doing all this incredible dancing and everything too. But I wanted to talk about the Funk Brothers, my man, about the musicians. Jamie Jamerson on bass. Joe Hunter, Earl Van Dyke, piano and organ, and Benny Benjamin and Richard Allen. You mentioned the Wallace sound and the Phil Spector sound. A lot of the Motown stuff used two drummers too. I didn't realize that, but you know, that's how they got that real snappy sound. And they used to. Have you ever noticed how there's a lot of tambourine on those early '60s things? You can always hear that high end. They had a lot of high end, but they had the bottom too. And Jamie Jamerson was an incredible bass player. He also played acoustic bass. He played upright, and I've heard that he had on his bass he had the bridge really high, so he had to really really dig in because he was used to playing acoustic bass.
Well, Little Richard didn't he? That was the thing. He had two drummers with him on tour, so.
Yeah, Little Richard. Yeah. A lot of people copied that sound. That was the
really?
Phil Spector
part of
sound,
the Wallace
and that was
sound.
the Motown sound. So a lot of people it was part of the Wallace sound. Yeah. So anyway, it takes us to the late '60s. Lamont, Holland Dozier and Holland had a falling out with with Berry Gordy, and left in about 1967. So, and then they moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Motown
the whole
moved to
thing
Los
moved,
Angeles,
right?
and,
the entire apparatus. I mean, what was left?
Yeah, in 72. But in the Jackson 5 era, I think a lot of the recording was actually being done in Hollywood. Yeah. Yeah. But, I met, I worked for Martha Reeves when she was recording an album for Richard Perry. I got to play Hammond organ, and
that's awesome.
I got to play Hammond organ and harmonica on it. And she was a very sweet person. She was very good, very nice, and she was quite a singer. She was a great singer. Unfortunately, the material on that album wasn't up to par. Wasn't the same as what she was getting at Motown. She never struck out on her own and had that kind of success, and most of those people didn't. But it just shows you that Motown was really on their toes and knew how to keep the momentum going.
And Hitsville, USA.
Yeah.
MFRG. Manufacturing. Yeah.
Okay, Rebel Soul. I really appreciate you dropping in on us like this, and
all right,
we're going to do this really soon again. Okay.
You too.
All right. Take care, my friend. Okay. So come back and see us in 2 weeks. We're going to do a special on Sun Records. That's so right, Mama. Yeah. So and subscribe. So we want to just let you know, just keep that good groove going. Keep that music in your life. Keep those good vibes going. So until then, take care.